have my cape in.
But you're kind of like a spaceman, huh?
No, actually, I'm a plumber. On the side. No.
Well, listen, I got a little piece of pipe backstage I'd like to have you work on.
Tell me about it.
In an era where music trends shift faster than you can say streaming service, the electric guitar remains a cultural touchstone. With over 3 million guitars sold in the US alone in 2021, it's clear that the allure of 6 strings and an amplifier is far from fading. Yet with so many players out there, the challenge of standing out has never been greater. For every guitarist trying to carve out their niche, there's a towering legacy of legends who did it first, and arguably better. Ace Frehley, the extraterrestrial axe slinger from Kiss, knows this struggle well. Decades after first stepping into his iconic spaceman boots, his sound is still instantly recognizable. An achievement he attributes to 3 guitarists who left an indelible mark on his playing. "I've learned from a lot of guys who sound like no one else," Frehley has said, and it's clear that standing apart in a crowded field has always been part of his mission. It's a sentiment that carries particular weight in an industry where imitation is often the fastest route to success, yet also the quickest way to obscurity. When you're surrounded by 1,000 aspiring shredders all vying for the same spotlight, originality is the only currency that counts. Frehley's approach has always been to lean into the influences that shaped him, while ensuring his own fingerprint remained clear. Eric Clapton was one of the first guitarists to leave an impression on the young Frehley. And it's not hard to see why. When you hear Eric Clapton play, you know it's Clapton, he's noted, and that distinctive quality is what makes Clapton's playing so enduring. Whether it's the soulful bends of Layla or the scorching solos of Crossroads, Clapton's touch is unmistakable. His ability to fuse blues phrasing with rock intensity offered Frehley a blueprint for crafting solos that feel both technically impressive and emotionally charged.
Well, I feel like this when my baby can't be found.
There's something inherently restrained yet powerful about Clapton's playing. He's never been one for needless flash, preferring to let each note speak for itself. It's a lesson Frehley took to heart, knowing when to let a simple phrase breathe and when to unleash a full throttle assault. But it wasn't just Clapton's melodic sensibility that caught Frehley's attention. The Kiss guitarist was drawn to the way Clapton could wield his guitar as a form of storytelling. Every note, every pause, carried weight. It's an approach that resonates deeply in Frehley's own work, particularly in tracks where his solos feel less like technical exercises and more like a dialogue with the listener. The idea that a guitarist can evoke as much emotion with a single note as with a flurry of them is something Clapton mastered, and Frehley in his own way carries that torch forward. Of course, where Clapton brought control and nuance, Jimi Hendrix embodied pure, unfiltered chaos. Frehley has often cited Hendrix as one of his biggest influences, and it's easy to hear why. Jimi Hendrix had his own style as well, and it was very distinctive, he once said, in a statement that feels almost comically understated. Hendrix wasn't just a guitarist, he was an experience. From the psychedelic haze of Purple Haze to the raw electricity of Voodoo Child, Hendrix transformed the guitar into something otherworldly. Frehley, never one to shy away from theatricality, found a kindred spirit in the way Hendrix approached performance, not just as a musician, but as a force of nature. What Hendrix offered Frehley, beyond the technical wizardry, was permission to push boundaries. It's one thing to play fast, to master scales, to execute flawless technique. It's another thing entirely to treat the guitar as an extension of oneself, to wring from it every ounce of feeling and fury. Hendrix played like a man possessed, as though the guitar was simply channeling whatever cosmic energy happened to be coursing through him at the time. Frehley absorbed this lesson eagerly, incorporating feedback, wild bends, and unexpected flourishes into his own style. Yet, despite the influence, he always maintained a sense of structure, perhaps Clapton's early teachings tempering Hendrix's chaos. And then there's Pete Townshend, the wild card in Frehley's trifecta of influences. If Clapton represents finesse and Hendrix represents raw power, Townshend brings something entirely different to the table. A deep understanding of how the guitar fits into the bigger picture. I learned a lot from studying Pete Townshend, Frehley has said, and it's not difficult to see why. Townshend's genius lies not in flashy solos or blistering speed, but in his mastery of rhythm, texture, and composition. For Frehley, Townshend's approach to layering sound was revelatory. A lot of people don't know that he buried an acoustic guitar under the electric guitar to create a fuller sound, he explained, a technique that might seem minor, but has a profound impact on a song's overall feel. It's the kind of detail that separates good musicians from great ones, the understanding that what the audience doesn't hear is just as important as what they do. Frehley has since adopted this philosophy, often employing similar techniques in his own recordings to add depth and warmth without overwhelming the mix. Townshend's influence also extends to Frehley's stage presence. While Clapton and Hendrix both had their unique styles of performance, Townshend's approach was a study in controlled chaos.
Cross member, and it's just knocked the head of the guitar off, and of course the audience laughed, and it made me very, very angry naturally that the audience were laughing.
The windmill strums, the leaps across the stage, the way he could command an entire arena with a single chord, it's all part of a broader understanding of how music and theatre intersect. Frehley, as a member of one of the most visually distinctive bands in rock history, knows better than most that image and sound are intrinsically linked from watching Townshend in action. But perhaps the most important lesson Frehley took from his heroes is the value of authenticity.
The makeup and all that other stuff, that can go, but I miss the kids' faces and the smiles and the screams and the adrenaline rush.
Clapton, Hendrix, and Townshend didn't achieve legendary status by following trends or imitating their contemporaries. They found their own voices and stuck to them, even when it meant going against the grain. Frehley, despite being part of a band often dismissed as more spectacle than substance, has always been unapologetically himself. He plays what he loves, in the way that feels right to him, and that's why his music continues to resonate with fans decades later.
You better believe I'm back in the New York groove. I'm back in the New York groove.
There's a certain irony in the fact that Frehley, a man who once dressed like an intergalactic traveller and played a guitar that quite literally shot fireworks, is in many ways a purist. Strip away the makeup, the platform boots, and the stage effects. And you're left with a guitarist who is deeply committed to the craft. His influences are obvious, but never derivative. Instead, they serve as stepping stones that allowed him to build something uniquely his own. In the end, the story of Ace Frehley's guitar influences isn't just about who inspired him, it's about how he took those lessons and forged them into a style that remains distinctly his. Whether it's the lyrical phrasing of Clapton, the fiery intensity of Hendrix, or the architectural brilliance of Townshend, each of these elements is present in Frehley's playing, but the end result, that's all him. And in an industry where imitation is often the easy way out, that's no small feat.